first, let's address this concern by a lot of Filipinos. We have now close to 130,000 confirmed cases.
Rizal using e-technology to write her novel. He used computer to post it on social media and to be aware of the pandemic. And his mother motivated her to help the society to be aware.
It has been a year of isolation, of missing loved ones, of struggling to make ends meet. A year of lines for food, for tests, and now for vaccines. Most of all, it has been a year of loss and heartbreak. How can you begin to mourn more than 500,000 lives?
We lost our son, our 21-year-old son.
We couldn't have envisioned any of this last January as cases climbed in Wuhan and our team there was forced to evacuate.
It's about 4 o'clock in the morning. We've received word that there's going to be effectively a full quarantine of the city.
From there, COVID ricocheted around the globe. Italy became an early hotspot. So did Washington State, where the virus tore through this nursing home, foreshadowing the devastating toll it would take on our most vulnerable. Eventually claiming the lives of more than 170,000 residents and staff of long-term care facilities, including Sheila Curran's husband.
I want more transparency. I want people to own up to their part in this. And I want him back.
By then, the race for vaccines and treatments was already underway.
So if you take a look under the microscope,
as I saw at Regeneron headquarters,
they are in the process of testing each antibody.
Treatments would eventually come faster than anyone could have hoped or predicted. But back then, they were still months away. Our focus during that uncertain time, how to stay safe.
Crisostomo Ibarra and Ilyas having a documentary of the pandemic. And Crisostomo Ibarra asked what is the cause of pandemic and where it comes. And this is the new story novel of El Filibusterismo. They given a topic about the documentary of the pandemic. They search some videos on social media and write in a book that will help the society to aware and to avoid. In 2019, a new coronavirus was identified as the cause of a disease outbreak that originated in China. The virus is now known as the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome or coronavirus.
Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has signed an anti-terrorism bill into law amid widespread opposition and fear it will be used to silence critics. But the government says those concerns are unfounded. Now, supporters of the law say it will bolster the Philippines' counter-terrorism efforts. For more, let's speak to Buena Benel. So, Buena, what are some of the biggest concerns about this new counter-terrorism, anti-terrorism law?
It's a law that its crafters say is patterned after anti-terrorism laws in Australia and France, but it has been met with strong opposition in the Philippines because of provisions on prolonged warrantless detention, prolonged surveillance through wiretapping technology, and even reduced liability for errant officers. The Anti-Terror Act of 2020 was signed by Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte in what the presidential palace calls a demonstration of the administration's seriousness to stamp out terrorism, but critics of its provisions say that could be used to target critics of government. Experts point out the level of distrust against law enforcers, including police and the military, which is why there is legitimate fear for abuse of the law. If you look at the track record of the police in the drug war, for example, thousands of drug suspects have died in police operations, with International Criminal Court prosecutor Fatou Bensouda conducting preliminary examination on the Philippines for possible crimes against humanity, currently looking at the country's willingness and ability to prosecute these cases, with the UN High Commissioner Commissioner on Human Rights, saying rights violations in the drug war are systematic, or even the military during martial law 48 years ago under former Philippines President Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr. For 14 years, thousands of dissidents killed, tortured, and detained. So there is historical basis for that fear. But authorities say the law's provisions, that is up to 24 days of warrantless detention and up to 3 months of surveillance through wiretapping, are needed to gather actionable information against suspected terrorists, as there have been cases in the past when individuals supposedly involved in bombing had to be released from government custody because enforcers did not have enough evidence to charge these individuals. And so critics are also arguing that the law is a form of degradation of civil liberties, not to mention that investigation and evidence gathering strategies should instead be bolstered. Critics say they will exhaust all legitimate steps to challenge what they called a draconian law. But if you recall, the Human Security Act of 2007, which is what this law will be replacing, was also challenged before the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court at that time ruled against that petition, saying that there was no justiciable controversy. In other words, the Supreme Court was looking or trying to find an actual case, of someone whose rights have been denied, so they can adjudicate whether it is an unjust law. Even before the bill was signed into law, critics were already preparing to challenge the constitutionality of the Anti-Terror Act before the Supreme Court.
Thanks for getting us up to speed. Buena Bernal speaking to us from Manila.
Maria Clara was with his friends, but Crisostomo Ibarra followed her to cut and to tell all the details to her father because of not following the rules of her father, and she has the consequence of what she does. Crisostomo Ibarra brought Maria Clara to Capitan Tiago, and Maria was worried that Crisostomo tell all what she does, and father will definitely mad of what he's doing. Capitan Tiago talked to his daughter and told all the story why he need to be more careful. And after that telling the story to Maria, Maria known all the story about his life, that she was kidnapped by a terrorist, and that's why Maria was known as a daughter of Capitan Tiago. Capitan Tiago realized that Maria needed to meet her true father. On July 3, 2020, Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte signed into law the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020, which replaces the Human Security Act of 2007. The President's administration has effectively crafted a new weapon to brand and hunt any perceived enemies of the state. The government says it needs the legislation to combat insurgencies. The law greatly expands the definition of terrorism and a law that seeks to prevent, prohibit, and penalize terrorism.
Open up the champagne, pop. It's my house, come on, turn it up. Hear a knock on the door and the night begins. we've done this before, so you come on in.